are some tips that you have for companies as they are growing and as they're really future proofing their company in a world where there's so much uncertainty?
hmm Yeah, I think the first thing is I like to help people realize that there is no certainty, right? There is no safety. And I think once we embrace that, then we can build. And the thing is, and some of the biggest companies are the best at it, right? I mean, you look at Google, you look at their skunk works and how they throw resources against just all these crazy ideas to see what works. I think somehow, whether it's a peer-to-peer group or reading or whatever, just see what's out there and play with stuff. Like right now, everybody should be playing with AI, right? And just seeing what they think and how they can use it. But automation and speed is a big thing, right? Speed kills. I mean, speed is a weapon. So I think uh, really just testing and trying. And then I'm a big fan of, there's this balance between, what Steve Jobs said is he never asked customers what they wanted. He gave them what he thought they wanted. But then there's, the net promoter, which is 100% find out what your customers want. I think there's something in the middle of that that you call value. And I think that is the key. I really agree with you there is if you can create something of value, uh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where you go or how you do it because someone will want that and you're solving a need and people want it. So I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
value too.
Hello, welcome to the Hands Off CEO show. Today on the show, I have Shaun Alger, who comes highly recommended by a mutual connection. So it's been really fun to start to get to know him, and I've had him on the podcast. I want to hear all about his sales expertise with his company, Volo House. Did I say that right? Did I butcher it?
Yeah, funny name. I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome. It's nice to have you here, Shaun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mandy.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about who you work with and what you do.
Yeah, so our origin story is interesting, right? I built a couple big companies, and my last one was real good and sold it. And I've always been a peer to peer person. I was president of young entrepreneurs in San Diego. I was in YPO, Vistage, and now Ref. And the origin story is when I sold my last one. We had 7 offices and 350 employees. It was pretty stressful, and one of my YPO peers actually committed suicide. And the note that he left was he was failing his family and his employees because he couldn't figure out revenue. So that, frankly, really upset me. And and I have some teammates as well. We're 16 people now that felt the same, and we dedicated ourselves to solving that problem.
Got it. So I saw that you've run a number of companies and exited a number of companies. And what kind of industries have you worked in?
All kinds. It's it's funny. Yeah, you can tell I'm an old man. I got a lot of gray, but yeah, looking back on my career, we have 3 kids that are entering the workforce now, and they asked me how I got to where I am. I wish I had some amazing plan, but I started off in hospitality. I was transferred from Seattle down to beautiful San Diego, and then I got into telecom, and then I got into facilities, and then consulting, and always sales has always been the thematic through everything. I've always really enjoyed people and solving problems and helping companies grow. So that's been a big thing for us.
Yeah, and it looks like you have done a number of different roles from the CEO, probably the sales manager, sales management. You've done COO too. It looks like as well,
hmm
which is
Yeah.
which is interesting actually because a lot of times people who are able to do operations are not good at sales, and people who are really good at sales absolutely suck at operations.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I've seen.
I did. I mean, I did suck. The thing I heard one time was, I'm a big fan of we use predictive index, but there's Hogue, there's other ones that are really good with figuring out your natural personality, behavioral style, and I had a YPO speaker one time said, "Does it inspire you or expire you?" And when I do sales and leadership, I'm inspired and ready to come to work the next day. And when I do operations, finance, human resource, I want to kick my dog and drink beer.
You know what? That's a really interesting point you made, inspire versus expire. And I think that what happens too, as we have more years in our career and we get better at a lot of different things. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but I've started to look at like, well, what are the things that really inspire me the most? Because I mean, to become successful, you have to get good at a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find that? I'm just really curious. Like, how did you discover that for yourself?
What a great question. I think a lot of it came from, who do I serve and what delivers the highest value and is exciting at the same time. And so it really intrigued me to solve sales problems, to engage customers, I believe sales isn't persuasion. It's not this tricky thing. It's relational. And of course, we help transactional sales systems succeed, but I really like relational. It's kind of where you play, right? Is more in the high ticket relational sales consulting venue. And you can't fake that. And so I enjoy part of that is learning how to be a more complete human, maybe a better human for myself and learn more about, it's kind of woo-woo stuff sometimes, but just learn more about myself and then how I can serve others. And it's really been interesting for me. It's at 57, I feel very young and motivated to still, I'm not looking forward to quote unquote retiring. I want to keep helping people.
Yeah, you shared some interesting things in your bio that I won't repeat. I looked at some of those things. I saw that my assistant had copied and pasted, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a character.
Yeah, I do like to have fun. I think humor is just huge. It's such a great tool for life because life can be hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you might as well have fun while you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So you were mentioned about woo-woo. So what have you found? Like, I guess what led you there? Have you always been that way? And how has that unlocked your next level?
Yeah. Wow. What a
I know
phenomenal question.
there was three questions. There were three. It was a little bit loaded. I'll just let
Great
you take
questions.
it where you want.
Yeah, great question though. I come from dysfunction, right? I was on my own pretty young, as was my wife, and we built a great life and raised three children, but we learned that much of that was fear-based. And so recently we've both done some heavy work, talk therapy. We actually went to a Tony Robbins thing, which was crazy. It was like this 4-day seminar that was just intense. And then we actually both did medicine work. We did a journey and separately. And through that, I figured out where that came from and why, and then how I can really be more loving, because I've been pretty forceful in my life. And that's a negative thing. The force is a negative emotion. I just want to be more peaceful and loving, but still deliver results and achieve things. But I just found that I was very forceful, I held things very tightly and controlled things. And that's an illusion, right?
Yeah. I can definitely relate with this. Right. The interesting thing about the person who wrote the book, The Hands-Off CEO, is that I've had a lot of real issues with control, and I think it's been a journey for me just learning through that. And I haven't done the medicine work you're talking about, but a lot of the other work I've definitely done, and I've actually discovered that a lot of what's come up for me the most, more than anything else, is actually the work that I've done in my relationship with my husband. We're 22 years on Saturday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know what? There's been a couple times we almost didn't make it. And really what it forced me to do is really come up against myself, come up against the fear, come up against the places where I felt like I needed to control that were making me, a rather undesirable woman to be around at times, to be quite honest. And maybe some of the same things that had made me successful were not working so well in my personal life, at least not with my relationship with my husband. And here's the thing is I think that we like to really be to really be happy and have the balance in all the areas of our life. Like we have to look at things holistically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very,
Anyway,
very wise words. And it is interesting, right? The the meaningful close relationships definitely give us opportunity to see, but consciousness is hard to really, you know, like Viktor Frankl, right? He said the gap between the stimulus and response. I mean, if you can calmly understand why and what, and then talk it through with your husband, that's so powerful.
yeah.
But I don't think most people do that, and our culture doesn't really incent that. I mean, we're all
Oh no.
we're so busy and we're so overwhelmed in these stupid phones, and it's we're always distracted, or you know
Oh,
alcohol, what, sex, drugs, whatever it is. I mean, it's just it's
yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting paradigm.
Well, and I think that we also, I mean, to your point about the relational, like you, like be what makes you successful is building relationships, and it shows that way for everything in your life. And I think there's too often there's like we're going to throw away relationships, and I was actually having a coaching call with one of the leaders on my team about a relationship that was really starting to go south with like between two people on the team, and how she can really step it up and how she can create something new. And I hope she's going to know who I'm talking about. But this really, but here's the thing is that like that's the values of our company is to be able to really create and recreate relationships when we mess up. And like I certainly do all the time, and I'm actually pretty good at recreating relationships because I've screwed up so many times. I've had a lot of practice, right? But I think that's a good opportunity even with our clients as well, because I found that sometimes the relationships that I've had the strongest with clients are actually where we might have dropped the ball on something, and like it's an opportunity to recreate that and just to show them how much you care about the relationship. And those are oftentimes people that actually become the most rabid fans.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a big net promoter house, and we find that in the qualitative responses a lot of times that it's how you solve problems, it's how you respond to challenges that build relationships. Many times, some of the highest NPS scores come from companies that are not perfect.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, how it actually shows up in the data too. So I know that you work with a lot of mid-market companies. You're mentioning that, and you mentioned about 60% of them are actually funded through private equity. Did I get that right?
Yep.
So I'd love to hear from you. What's different about the sales needs from a company that's a mid-market versus maybe like you define, first of all, how would you define a mid-market company?
Yeah,
And
that's a great question, right? Because
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I've
a
heard every response. So we
right.
at Volo House describe it as 3 to 200 million in revenue, and then we're B2B, business to business mostly. So we just our tool set and our process doesn't work as well with B2C companies. We don't get as rich data that we can act on.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That's why we focus on B2B as well. Similar reasons. It's a different kind of business, right?
Yep.
So then, what kind of challenges that you're? I mean, there's a lot of different growth stages throughout. And maybe we should actually start with that. What are the different growth stages that you're seeing from like a 3 million up to a $200 million company? And there might be a lot, but I'd like to hear your
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's not like many things. It's not linear. And I've been adopting more of a seasonal approach in my mindset. Is this a summer? Is this a spring, a fall? Like, where are we reaping or sowing? And then I've always found in the back of my mind that a company kind of grows like a crab walks, right? You go sales ops, sales ops. And sometimes it's like eating 20 saltine crackers. You're like, oh boy, we're not doing this right, So the challenges are interesting and they're always unique, and I think that's what keeps me in the game. It's just so fun to solve those problems, and now not problems, opportunities. They're not problems, but now too, it's moving so quickly. And I use a term. I'm a pilot, and I'm in San Diego near Miramar and near Camp Pendleton. So a lot of my friends are Marines and pilots, and they use this thing called OODA loop. The fighter pilots use that. It's observe, orient, decide, and act. And so we quickly try to figure out what's going on. But that cycle now is so fast with technology and AI. I mean, some of my customers are disrupting 100-year-old businesses in 3-4 years. I mean, it's crazy. So it's really fun. But yeah, I wish I had a more linear response for you, Mandi, but it's never is.
Okay. Well, that's. I think that's what kind of planes do you fly?
You name it. I mean, I would like to fly, fighter pilot jets, but I'm not cool enough. But yeah, I'm certified through everything. So I've flown jets and turboprops and twins, everything. I love it. But yeah, one of our 3 kids is also a pilot too, so it's fun.
That is fun. My dad is a pilot as well. And he had his whole career was based around that. Been an aviation insurance broker, to be specific. So he found a way to be able to fly and get his airplanes paid for.
Very
like
cool.
Renting it back to his company was kind of interesting. But so I grew up flying in little small aircrafts. His favorite was his Mooney.
Oh, I love the Mooney. Was it an Ovation? Do you know which one? Encore, Ovation, or which one it was?
Encore sounds familiar, but I don't know. I don't.
That's a great bird, yeah.
Yeah, he really enjoyed flying. But I think that's a great analogy as well. So then, in your disrupting companies like 3 to 200 million, what are some of the challenges that like a mid-market company has around sales that maybe a smaller company doesn't have? Or like, how are things different?
Yeah, I think the thing that popped in my mind when you asked that question is I think there's just this phase, this no person's land, where you're too big to be small and too small to be big. So, you need a CRO, but you can't afford $500,000 kind of thing. You need a high-powered CRM or ERP or whatever software acronym we want to throw out there to your listeners. But it just, I find that to get to that next level, to bust from 5 to 10, to bust from 10 to 20, like those are significant thresholds. And actually, your listeners can Google it. It's pretty well documented that, what percent of businesses fail is insane. And then the complexity ceilings at certain revenue levels, it really gets complicated, and it gets time and resource demanding. And a lot of companies just can't do it.
And I know you have done that in past companies that you've owned and you've exited. So what did you find was that made the difference between you being able to get past the complexity ceiling when others hadn't?
I didn't sleep. Yeah, no, it took a dedicated crew. I mean, I'm fascinated with the PayPal Mafia crew, right? And I listen to their All In podcast, and just thinking about these people living in a home, just eating top ramen. I mean, it's a typical Silicon Valley story, the romanticized, but that's kind of what we did. We found some very passionate people that bought into the dream, and they all did really well because of it. But again, they have, I always love the old saying about, I don't know if you ever heard this, but they list off what being an entrepreneur, what it was part of that, and 85% failure rate. You're going to make less money, more stress, mostly divorced. And they go, so you want to do that? And for some reason we say yes. I mean, like, what are we thinking? But we have this weird drive, ego, whatever it is, that we think we can do it. And And that's kind of what we did too, Mandy. We just grinded hard. We were bootstrapped, but you know, I put up a lot of my assets against it. I mean, my family supported that, but I mean, I could have one day been, the bank could have made me leave my house if we didn't succeed. So it was definitely motivating.
Yeah. So then, you talked about, being these too large, too small to have the resources to be able to get to the next level, too large to outgrow a lot of them. So then how do you find you add value to companies that maybe can't be at that 500K mark with a CRO, or even if they hire them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out. It could be
Exactly right.
quite a gamble.
Yeah, and you won't know for a year at least. You'll think it's going well, but you don't know. So, yeah, our passion around that is we've built a process that works. It's fast and cheap. 2 months, 40 grand, and then we offer a fractional service too. So you can get a $500,000 CEO or CRO or VP of sales, or we even have teams that can prove a thesis. Like they could be a call team, whatever, SDRs, whatever you want, to prove a thesis, and then we can either hire behind it or test small, backtrack, whatever we want to do. So we've built fractional paths to prove it, to make sure that the decision is a little wiser.
Got it. So then what kind of results have you seen in your industry? Like when you're working with clients, what kind of things have you seen? What do you expect?
Yeah, we've had some luck for sure. On our website, we have some videos and some testimonials. We've sold a couple. We haven't sold. We've been part of the team, so we were the revenue side of the team to grow companies and help them exit. And we've had some couple of $1 billion numbers, a bunch of 1 to 400 million numbers. So we've done almost 700 projects now. Believe it or not, we average about a month ish. And we have tremendous success. The cool thing about it is that I truly believe sales is math for the most part, and process combined with direction and discipline yields results. So we've really been able to help and create something that, especially on the lower side of that maybe a $3 to $10 million, it might be just owner led sales, or you might have one artist, one amazing salesperson, but if that person's gone, you can't replicate it. So we like to build a process and a system that is very scalable. I know you really believe in scalability, and I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Well, I do believe in scalability, but I believe first and foremost in generating value and getting really clear about the value you're creating, and then scaling that. Whereas a lot of companies, they focus on scale. They focus on, well, this is taking me a certain amount of hours. I want to remove those hours. I'm like, well, you've now just commoditized yourself, and anybody can do it if you're going to remove those pieces from it that actually add value. Is the difference between whether you're going to get the results predictably or not. And instead of like that, and that takes hard work to actually look at how do we be, like with the work that you're doing, Shaun. I mean, you're able to come in and be that VP of sales for the companies, and being able to drive these companies to it sounds like tens of millions of dollars of new growth, hundreds of millions of dollars new growth in some cases. That takes some success conditions. That takes really being clear on it, not saying how could we make this be as streamlined as possible for us because that's what works best for our business model. Obviously, we want to do that. We want to do that, but we want to get to isolate the results first.
Yep, love it. If we were in church, I would say amen for sure.
Oh, gosh. All right. Yeah. Well, I figured you're a systems guy too, just looking at your website and the way that you approach sales. So it does make sense. Well, looking at this, you mentioned about how fast things are moving, how fast the pace is. What are some tips that you have for companies as they are growing and as they're really future-proofing their company in a world where there's so much uncertainty?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I like to help people realize that there is no certainty, right? There is no safety, and I think once we embrace that, then we can build. And the thing is, and some of the biggest companies are the best at it, right? I mean, you look at Google, you look at their skunk works and how they throw resources against just all these crazy ideas to see what works. I think somehow, whether it's a peer-to-peer group or reading or whatever, just see what's out there and play with stuff. Like right now, everybody should be playing with AI, right? And just seeing what they think and how they can use it. But automation and speed is a big thing, right? Speed kills. I mean, speed is a weapon. So I think really just testing and trying. And then I'm a big fan of, there's this balance between, what Steve Jobs said is he never asked customers what they wanted. He gave them what he thought they wanted. But then there's, the net promoter, which is 100% find out what your customers want. I think there's something in the middle of that you call value. And I think that is the key. I really agree with you there, is if you can create something of value, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where you go or how you do it, because someone will want that, and you're solving a need, and people want it. So I'm a big fan of value too.
Yeah. Well, and the way that I would define value is actual tangible, quantifiable outcomes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of service companies, they're focused on their service. They're focusing on what they want to do, their own operations, and not actually what the customer wants. What the customer wants is they don't want, this is if they want value, they're looking at it from the perspective of I want to generate more growth for the company, or whatever it is, they want to save profit, whatever the thing is. And what I've found too is that when business owners, when salespeople are actually, when they know the value of what it's actually going to do for the organization, as far as this is tangibly going to be adding $10 million to this company over the next, X amount of time. When they know that, whether they actually have said that to the customer or not, they sell in a different way. Mm-hmm. Right. And I know you do that too, because you have that conviction, what's possible, and you have the benefit of all these case studies that you can lean on too. But I think that's the whole point, is to build those case studies and to start out with that intention of building those case studies. And too many companies don't do that.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, and it creates an energy, really, if we want to get back to the woo-woo stuff. And I know most of not everybody's in, SoCal like I am. I mean, I know you're not, but
I'm
yeah,
Jason.
I think the energy of it, right? I mean, if you're coming at it with like you said, confidence, you can deliver results. They're tangible. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So then, how does that play into it when you're actually putting together B2B offers? How important is are the results when you're putting together offers? And I'm assuming you're doing offers together and also their go-to-market plan.
Yeah, we don't do marketing it per se. We do maybe just the lead gen side of it. We'll be interested, but we gather data with client surveys. We secret shop, which is interesting because during secret shopping, you really see the messaging, the differentiators, and the proof, right? Where are the proofs? And then we interview and we assess their current team, and out of that, we either optimize or create a sales and marketing plan, marketing lead gen, the org chart. So who are we? Strengths, weaknesses, seats on the bus, whatever you want to say, and then to scale, what do we need? And then the process, so the funnel, the sales steps, metrics, all that stuff, and then finally the platform. So whatever sales tech they have, CRMs, ERPs, whatever they have, we optimize those as well.
Okay, got it. How important are past results as far as your success goes with your clients?
Our past results or theirs?
No, theirs. Their past results, them being able to show case studies that drive real results. How much easier is that to do your work?
Yeah, we love testimonials. I mean, there's a huge company we just out of Indy. I think they're $140 million that we just did a project for. And in the secret shopping, 4 of their competitors, not one of them had any proof. They had no testimonials. They had no reasons to buy from them. And so we're going to slaughter them. I mean, it's just hilarious. Having testimonials and proofs and, like you said, real tangible outcomes. That's pretty easy. It's and again, what are we selling, right? Getting out of the features benefits, and we're selling the emotion, the the results, the outcomes, and so they're going to kill it. And I was shocked at that size of a company that their competitors don't do that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was talking with you before we hit record was that I'd love to hear your perspective on, like, you're working with 60% funded companies and in this mid-market, and for some some of our clients, they have struggled to be able to move up market. So what would you say to some of these firms that are trying to sell into mid-market B2B firms? What are some of the things that they need to think about? And what would be like the first step that you would recommend for them approaching it?
So selling to private equity or selling to the companies themselves?
That's a really good question. And which one would you like to start with? Because I bet the answers are different for each.
They're very different. Private equity mass generalization, but their thesis is pretty obvious, right? So I'm going to buy a company with a low multiple, and then I'm going to bolt on other companies, and now that revenue is going to be higher, and the multiple will be higher, and then I'm going to sell it. It's not rocket science what they do, right? Now there's a lot to that: raising money, deal flow, operational management, all that stuff. Not easy, but doable. And they're smart, but they're not brain surgeons. We're not talking about PhDs here. And then they're hard to penetrate because they're quote unquote busy. They've seen it all, heard it all. And so normally, at least my path, I'll speak about our path, is it took a long time. We're 15 years old, and it took 7 years to get our first private equity backed customer. And then we got really lucky. One of our clients, it's on our website actually under testimonials, one of our clients, Innovize, we grew them and they sold to Autodesk. So we grew them, tripled them, but not a giant number. And they sold for over $1 billion. So let's just say we made a lot of people super wealthy. Well, when you make some people wealthy, that gets around. And so once that got around, we were introduced to their entire portfolio. And so most of them have a thesis around something, right? Whether it's HVAC or SaaS or whatever. And so, they had 20 companies, and we've had home runs with all of them. So then they tell their friends from business school, and it gets around. And so that's how we've grown. We really don't get any business from lead gen, social media. Most of our business is referral based. And also when leaders go from one company to another, we call that viral selling. Basically, if you went to a different company, you would take us with you. We had a call like that this morning where we had success, and now the new CEO is bringing us in to help scale it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what I'm hearing is with your private equity that really the only way you got in through is just through the results that you did. Mm-hmm. And so just your focus on being an exceptional company is what has given you a real strong place in the market. So,
yeah, they can smell the BS from a mile away. So if you can prove a couple cases and then just take those cases to them, and then and it's really just consistently knocking on their door. You've got to really top of mind and drip market them and say, look what we did for your colleague. So, hey, Mandi, look what we did for John, who's the private equity firm down we made him rich. You want to be rich? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's imagine that a company doesn't have like this $100 million exit that they can show, like, look at what we did. What's another pathway that maybe they could get to just the companies themselves?
Yeah, so I love really understanding the sales process, really knowing who their customers are, the sales process itself, including, average sale, your economics, conversion rates, sales steps, all that. So ideally, if you can get a coach or someone who's willing to invest a a good amount of time. When I say coach, I mean a coach in the business, whether it's a friend or colleague from college or someone from church, whatever it is, and you can just have a conversation with them and really understand the business. Then you can normally, I mean, I haven't found a business yet that is perfect. So I think most of your listeners, because you guys are very high level professionals, can probably add some value. It's just understanding that value, the economics of the value. Because like I always say, I'll pay you $1 million all day long if you give me 5 back. That's easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you said a coach, are you talking about an employee that's already in the company? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so then how would you go about making that connection and opening up that conversation?
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the previous stuff we talked about with the energy, relationship skills, right? So there's so much information now, it's crazy. So LinkedIn, you can find different ways that people relate to people, what they're interested in. You schedule a coffee. I mean, the theory of reciprocity we still use with great results, So we find out that, someone's a mountain biker or whatever it is, and we send them a little note or a gift or a picture of us also mountain biking or whatever it is. So now you have something, and then over time, it takes a little bit of time, but over time you develop a relationship with them. Again, completely intentional, not commission breath, not about me, about them and about the company, and truly having a desire. I call it curiosity, just a desire to learn and be curious about them and their business, because once you get that level of relationship with that person, it's surprising what they'll tell you, because they want you to help. They like
Right.
you, they respect you, and they want you to help. There's some great organizations too you can join. I mean, these peer-to-peer things are phenomenal. EO, there's even some other ones, provisors, things like that, where you can very low stakes meet people. Your energy, because there's got to be a chemistry, right? Your chemistry has to match. You gotta like each other and get along with each other, and then from there you can develop a relationship, and then see. And then if you can't help them, a lot of times they know somebody that you can't help, and it really develops that way. It's amazing what a small world it is nowadays.
Right. So then when you're looking at, is there a specific, are you going directly to the department that you wanted to sell into? Let's say it's a marketing company, they're doing marketing agency services. I'll just use that as an example, or branding or something along those lines. So are you saying that they need to be in that marketing department, or could it be any other department?
Yeah, any other really, as long as
Okay.
they're in the company and they understand how the company works.
Okay.
Some of the greatest referrals that we've received are like a receptionist, or even a temp, someone that's a 1099 or fractional or something, where they know the business and we can really understand the business. I mean, versus just calling up and saying, "Hey, Mandi, how are you?" Saying, "Hey, Mandi, I know your business, I know your model, I know your competition. I think we can help you. Is it worth a coffee?" And you're probably like, "Yeah, probably."
Well, and so the really smart thing about that too is that, I mean, how often are receptionists treated with so much respect, and that they're treated as someone that has a lot of value to add, and that probably happens a lot less for them than, say, the CMO.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Because they just get pummeled, and they probably have gatekeepers. I mean, good luck getting to a CEO of $100 million company, right?
So then when you're doing that, then you have all this information. Then at that point, do you go reach out cold, or are you relying on that contact to be able to make the connection?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I think ideally that person would facilitate a meeting. Like, "Hey, my friend Mandi, I really respect her. She's got this offering and she knows our business. She'd love to talk to us. Is it worth an email? Is it worth a Zoom? Is it worth a coffee?"
Okay. Now I really like this because I like this because it's counterintuitive to a lot of sales advice out there, including one of my own sales mentors, when he was just like, "Hey, you want to get get at the very top, right? Because you're trying to work up, it's going to be really hard. It's easier to be introduced down than up, and obviously that's true. But it's harder to be able to get to the top, especially now. It's like there's so much noise that leaders really have to get very stringent about what they let in. Otherwise, you don't get anything done.
Yeah.
So I like that your approach is different here. Is there anything else that you would say? Like, do you agree with the other approach that I was mentioning? And like, how have you seen this work?
Yeah, I think I would call it the decider, right? If you can understand who the decider is, and many times that's a process, could be an individual, could be a board, could be a team, could be investors. Yeah, I think it is key to, at the end of the day, to understand who the decider is, because you're going to have to present to them. But we like this buying center approach. So we have it in front of me, whether it's an endorser, a decider, an assessor, a user, or a coach. So all of those titles play into the decision, and we don't even propose unless we have a coach. So when we have a thing, one of our partners is shared vision selling. So they create this vision together with the client, and then they're iterating that together. So it's not because I always like to say in communication, right? You and I have a relationship, but our relationship is between us. There's this ball in between us that is a person, that is our relationship, and they're unique. And then you add another person, now you have that ball just gets bigger because more people, but we iterate that. And so a good sales proposal should just be a document of our conversation and agreement, right? It's not that I'm pitching you, it's that I'm persuading you, I'm not tricking you, for sure, not tricking you, right? So yeah.
So then how do you do this at scale? Because this you're rolling this out to your clients, and do they have similar sales processes too, or is it a different process that they would be doing?
They all have unique processes, but yeah.
But how are they doing that? How are you training other team members? Is there anything different? Like, we're talking, you and I, like, you were saying, this is how I would approach this. But when you're looking across, like, you say you have a team of 12 salespeople or 20 salespeople, are they all doing the same process here?
Yeah.
Are they expected to? Okay. So
yeah. So the researching, the engaging, developing a coach, that process is all the same.
Okay. So then when you're hiring salespeople, then you're expecting them to be they're like the farmers and also the ones that are harvesting. Like, they're doing both?
No, we normally specialize.
Okay.
Like any football coach would tell you, and now it's just getting crazy, right? You have people that come in just for third downs. I mean, it's crazy how specialized football has gotten. But that analogy is, I think, the same with sales. We'll have some people that are more lead gen focused, some people that are more research focused, some SDRs that might qualify up front because the relational salespeople are pretty skilled and compensated, and so we want to feed them really high value leads. So we normally break up hunting and farming, if you use that traditional label. We normally break those up.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So then so when you said the SDR goes and they qualify it, so is this just from a cold call and you're just deciding to qualifying it from that, or are they doing the research? Is this SDR also doing the research?
Research. Yeah. Okay. Now we have AI tools that do most of it.
All right. Got it. Any of the AI tools that you recommend that aren't
your
private IP?
I'll send you a list of them. I mean, there's some crazy stuff out there, and it just keeps getting better. I always like to say that even though there was recently an MIT study that came out that AI seems to be plateauing a little bit in actual usage, but sales in general is, we're pretty promiscuous when it comes to new technology. So yeah, we have some great tools and we refine them all the time, and they link into some of the things like an Apollo or a Zoom Info, so you can bring these things in. You can have sentiment. You can tie in, LinkedIn, website, all this different data, and then you can filter it and come up with certain variables that point to pretty high value targets. And we even have some, we're playing with SDRs now that are actually AI. They're not humans.
Wow.
So they
I'm
reach
hearing
out
that.
via email, voicemail. They can leave voicemails. They can listen to sentiment. I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, it is crazy. And one of one of the ways that I like to use AI a lot with sales, and I know this is for you, is going to be so low level, but just
Yeah.
taking your sales calls and uploading them and using that like a really good sales call, using that as an avatar so that you can build avatars around it. And I've been doing this for years and years, but like when someone says something like, "Oh, that's it, that's the messaging right there," and you take the exact messaging and you use that in you use that in your messaging and your sales collateral, and it's ridiculously easy, but most people don't do it,
Hmm.
and you can learn so much. So I think anyone who's listening, if you're not recording your sales calls, it's a huge missed opportunity because there's so much data there.
So much. I agree 100%. Yep. And
Yeah.
then you can really test it. You get that information, and that's why I miss of our three kids, only one of them is in a cohort, and so they're in a cubicle environment with multiple people. And every day, my son will call me. He's like, "Oh my God, John said this, and it was so good." And that's with working from home and office space kind of changing, that I miss that. And I think agentic AI can do that. Like you said, you can test things, you can record things, and go, "Wow, they really 90% of our clients respond to that." So let's do that. It's one of my favorite stories. We do a lot in wealth management, and we had this wealth management client. And he just was really adamant about talking about one thing, and we survey the clients. We do our secret shop. We look at the competitors, and we're like, "You keep saying red, and everybody wants to hear blue. So let's just test it. Let's do blue." And literally, we added $2 billion of AUM to the company, and he was like, "Yeah, that was a good idea." Yeah.
That is really funny. That's a great example. And
Mhm.
I know sometimes when you test something, and there was like a little brand that my marketing team came up with, and I'm like, I don't like that at all. And then they tested it on ads. I'm like, all right, fine, it was good. It wasn't just on
Yeah.
ads; it was tested on a lot of different collateral, and it got a much better result. So yeah,
Yeah.
you have to test, right, and actually track the metrics. So
And it
well,
changes too, right? It changes. Like it's like fishing. I mean, they bite on something for a while and then they don't.
well, and that's the thing too. Is this last year, so many things have changed,
Oh,
and things have changed so quickly too. And the challenge could be that they've changed, then you don't notice it until it's gone on too long. And I think that's part of what happens with plateaus I've seen, and maybe
hmm.
you've seen something different, but
Yeah, and there's great case studies for your listeners. The one I've been geeking out lately is the disk drive industry, and how it was so competitive and so big and gone. It's like gone. It's literally gone. Betamax, CDs. You can just keep going. There's all these industries that you can make hay while the sun shines, but yeah, it can change, and you either change or die.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there are a lot of our listeners who are in those kind of industries, and I think that there's a massive change it's already happening in
Mhm.
professional services, consulting services, agencies big time, that it's become so commoditized, and they're not able to get away with, like, we're offering this services, maybe you want it, maybe it just, they can't get away with that
Mhm.
anymore. And there are, and what I'm finding is a lot of people in the industry are just getting more and more fearful, and it's the opposite of what they should be doing right now, as far as like getting deep and getting really understanding what their customers want and giving it to them,
Mhm.
right? But instead, they're like kind of holding on to their marbles, and they might be testing some things, but nothing that actually makes any big difference. And
Mhm.
so I think that there's going to be a lot of, I don't hate to be like a doomsdayer, but there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to struggle because they're not willing to actually innovate.
Mhm. Yeah, and we have a lot of agencies as clients actually, and we work with a
Yeah.
lot because, like I said, we don't do marketing. And what I find is the segmentation, right? Not only the clients, but you're either small and cheap, or you're huge with some crazy services. The mid market agency, I think, is going away. Um,
Yeah.
it's just too hard, and AI is definitely affecting it. I mean, I can make a video in a minute on AI, using AI. I don't know if you've used Gamma or some of the other tools, but I mean, it's insane. I can make a PowerPoint deck in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and that's also one of the things I know we talked about this a little bit on Friday, but so one of the changes that we're making is around really going around the companies that are innovating right now, big time innovating. They have great case studies, and if they don't have that, they're just too early for us to work together. And early could also mean that there's some companies that I've seen that like they could be a $10 million company, and they're too early because they actually haven't delivered real tangible results. Whereas I've seen the solo person, or maybe they have like a few people on their team, but they have like an incredible ability to drive big results. And those kind of companies can grow so fast because they can actually create demand because the market wants what they have.
Yep. Love that.
Yeah. So Shaun, where can people reach out to you? How can they reach you?
They can just come to my house. We can have a glass of wine or coffee. No, I'm kidding. A lot of people probably want to come to San Diego right now. I talked to a customer in North Carolina. It was 13 degrees this morning. I'm like, oh, geez. But yeah, I think email's probably the best. It's my parents gave me a weird name. It's SHAUN. I don't know why it's not SEAN, but SHAUN at Volohaus, which is also weird. VOLOHAUS.com. My cell phone. I mean, I'm always answering. I really try to be available. So 760-815-4464, and whether we can help or point you to someone that can, we really want to be of service. So I love talking to you, Mandi. I definitely feel like we share very similar values and desire to help people, and that's however we can. So whatever people need, just let us know.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing all of your years of expertise. It was great to have you, Shaun.
That was a nice way of calling me old. Thank you.
You're old. You're old and crusty. Thanks again, Shaun.
Have a good day. See you, man.
You too.